At the end of a century, ravaged by violence, a society of perfect order will arise. Criminals will be frozen and reprogrammed in cryogenic prisons.
The prisoners are ice cubes. Their criminal instincts are being reprogrammed as they sleep.
Aggression and deviant behavior will be totally eliminated.
He's a criminal the likes of which you have never seen. In a bad time, he was the worst.
I'm gonna love running this place.
But in the year 2032...
This morning, Simon Phoenix escaped from this cryo facility. We are, quite frankly, not equipped to deal with the situation.
Amidst a world of peace and calm...
We're police officers. We're not trained for this kind of violence.
How was the fiendish Simon Phoenix apprehended back in the 20th?
In the end, it took just one man. John Spartan.
You mean the Demolition Man?
The conditions of your parole are full reinstatement into the SAPD and immediate assignment to the apprehension of Simon Phoenix.
Two mortal enemies.
Just dropped in to say hi.
From another time.
Pass is over, John. Time for something new and improved. Oh, hell.
Will be unleashed on a future that isn't big enough for the both of them. Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes, Demolition Man.
Illuminate, deluminate. My God, I love this movie. I love that trailer. I love everything about this flick because for the span of the past 26 years and just a couple months, we have been able to watch what I consider to be the last great 1980s action film. This came out October 3rd, 1993, and to my mind, it very much is the last of the 80s inspired action movies, and it holds up. 27 years later, this absolutely holds up. So I would like to welcome everyone to the very first episode of Podio Commentary. This is a series I've been kicking around in my head for a while where I thought it would be a lot of fun to just kind of dive into a movie, talk about it, talk about what we like, what we don't like, make sure you guys get involved, you guys are part of the conversation, and we just get to look at movies from more of just a fun, positive perspective. Sure, there's going to be bad movies, there's going to be good movies, but there's going to be just movies, right? And I think that's why we love the entertainment industry for what it can bring us and everything else. And there's been hundreds and thousands of movies over the span of our lifetime. There's an estimated, how many a year come out? So there's always something to talk about, always something to look at. And I wanted to go back and take a look at this iconic, very iconic movie. So for those of you who are uninitiated with the film, there will be spoilers here. And I know a couple of you here haven't seen this movie. I don't understand that. You should definitely find a way to go see it right now. But the general synopsis is, with innocent victims caught in the crossfire in Los Angeles' intensifying war on crime, both cop John Spartan and violent thug Simon Phoenix are sentenced to a state frozen incarceration known as cryo prison. When Spartan is finally thawed 36 years later, it's 2032, and Los Angeles is now a pacifist utopia called San Angeles. But the Phoenix again on the loose, Spartan must team up with the future cop Lenina Huxley to apprehend the killer. That's right, folks. We've got Sylvester Stallone teaming up with Sandra Bullock. This is before Speed came out, by the way. This was actually made before Speed came out. I found out that she actually she became friends with Rob Schneider during the production of this movie and had told him about the concept of Speed. And even Schneider's like, I don't know. I don't know if that might be that good of a movie for you. That may not be that good of a film. I don't know. But thankfully, we have Speed, and trust me, I will be talking about Speed here on the series. But my favorite Wesley Snipes role outside of Blade has always been Simon Phoenix. Getting him to play this very charismatic killer was awesome. And it's again, the characterizations in this movie are one of the things that keep us coming back for more, coming back into this particular world. Never mind all the prophecies that it kind of put out there, right? All the jokes it put out there from 1993 that kind of ended up becoming true. And that's actually one of the things that does come up later on. But also in the film is just a much younger Dennis Leary playing Edgar Friendly, the leader of the underground resistance, who, when they cast him in this movie, they rewrote his character in order to give him time to rant, because you cannot have Dennis Leary in a movie without him ranting about something at some point in time. To me, that's just why you bring Dennis Leary in. You've also got Benjamin Bratt here as Officer Alfredo Garcia, where he gets to play this very just kind of like happy-go-lucky, plucky dude. And one of the things that cracks me up about this particular shot is we see the Lethal Weapon 3 poster in the background. That was not on accident. I mean, that was a movie that had recently come out, produced by Joel Silver. Joel Silver was, again, if you don't know much about Joel Silver, his producing back in the 80s and early 90s, he was a very big power player. This is true. This is an image I found of Joel Silver, the Demolition Man trading card set. They actually had this. Everything back in the 90s had trading cards, and you can even head over here to Amazon.com and you can buy this trading card. It calls him the director of Demolition Man. That's not true. He was just a producer. But you can get it for $4 with $3 shipping. And there's only 3 left in stock. So if you are a diehard Joel Silver fan, now is the time to jump in on that particular action. But the movie itself was directed by Marco Brambilla. And he only directed 2 notable films and only really one notable movie, and that would be Demolition Man. The other movie he did was Alicia Silverstone and Benicio del Toro's Excess Baggage, which is, that kind of blew my mind when I found that one out, mostly because Excess Baggage was not a good movie. It was the first film out of I think a 3-picture, $10 million deal Alicia Silverstone had made with Paramount following the success of Clueless. And this is the first one that she did. And they got the director, of Demolition Man to do that movie, which was really just kind of a waste. I would have loved to have seen a Demolition Man 2. I feel like the movie itself would have probably warranted that. But one of the things that cracks me up the most about Demolition Man is this right here. Do you recognize the gentleman right there? Do you recognize the guy right there with the circle around him? Could that potentially be a very, very, very young Jack Black? You know what? It actually was. And the first time I noticed that wasn't even this right here. I was rewatching the movie and I'm looking at the end credits and all of a sudden I see Wasteland Scraps and there's Jack Black's name. And I was just like, holy crap. Never mind, also at the very bottom of the Cricons is Jesse Ventura, who I think didn't get enough play for being in this movie, but I just loved it nonetheless that Jack Black himself showed up. I mean, look, when you look at something like Demolition Man, there's a whole bunch that people love about this movie. I mean, obviously there is the question about the 3 seashells. Do you know how to use the 3 seashells? And we're actually going to talk about that in a little bit. But so I wanted to take a look at a couple of things here. One of which is just kind of looking over mostly the Wikipedia page has some information here. As this series goes on, I'll have a lot more assets and stuff built up and put together. But really, for the most part, you're just looking at the Wikipedia seems to be probably the best course of action. So, showing us here that this movie is a 1993 American science fiction film. It tells the story of 2 men, as we know, the evil crime lord and the risk-taking police officer, which works really well in the context of what it was that they were trying to do. Good versus evil to the extremes, so to speak, but just in the massive explosion-based era that we saw from the action films in the late 80s and early 90s. And of course, you've got the whole plot line here, which we don't need to look at, but we get some interesting facts when we start diving into just the cast here, right? So Stallone was Sergeant John Spartan. Originally, they wanted Jean-Claude Van Damme or Steven Seagal to play the role, but both turned it down. I mean, Jean-Claude Van Damme, I get around that time was hard target. He was coming into like doing that whole thing. And I think was that a John Woo movie? I forget. But Seagal, you figure Seagal would have done it. Right? You figure Seagal would have done something like that. That feels like kind of a Seagal thing, but I don't think Seagal would have been able to capture the charisma and the magnetism that we got out of Stallone in that role. Wesley Snipes as Simon Phoenix. The role was originally offered to Jackie Chan, but Chan turned it down because he didn't want to play a villainous character. And the reason for that actually had everything to do with the fact that he had been, he's an Asian star. He's an Asian movie star, and he was a hero over there. And he didn't like the idea of playing a villain that would have gone to the Asian markets. And I understand that. Then you've got Sandra Bullock coming in as Lieutenant Lenina Huxley. Now, this is weird. Lori Petty was originally cast as Lenina, but then was replaced by a relative unknown Sandra Bullock after 2 days of filming due to what producer Joel Silver described as creative differences. I don't know much about Lori Petty and her personality, but I mean, I know Lori Petty from Tank Girl and like Free Willy and a bunch of other movies. So for me, looking at her in this particular role wouldn't make a lot of sense, right? Sandra Bullock nailed that performance. She nailed it as a young, bored police officer who has nothing really to do because they live in the pacifist world, and she so desperately longs for what she perceived to be the action-packed late 19th century. And given her the propensity for the movies that she has, like the Lethal Weapon 3 being a Joel Silver production, you can kind of see that she was looking at that as being more like historical documentaries, is how I generally tended to look at that. And there was like even Rob Schneider, like I said, he shows up as Irwin. He's uncredited, but he had popped up in when Rob Schneider popped up in this movie, I was laughing because I wasn't expecting it. I saw it in the trailer, and then I saw the movie when it came out, and I thought to myself, man, that's pretty crazy that Rob Schneider was able to jump on this thing. Because I knew him from SNL, and this is, before diving into all the Adam Sandler movies, when he was trying his hand at basically being the comedic sidekick in a lot of his action films, like Dredd or Judge Dredd, when he popped up in that one, and even the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie Knockoff, which came out a couple years later, he also tried popping up. And then I think he found I don't want to say he found his niche, but he kind of found it in regards to just, being cameos in Adam Sandler films. But here's where it gets kind of interesting. It talks about General Motors provided the production team with 18 concept vehicles, including the Ultralight. More than 20 fiberglass replicas of the Ultralight were produced to portray the civilian and SAPD patrol vehicles in the film. After filming had completed, the remaining Ultralights were returned to Michigan as part of GM's concept fleet vehicle. So if you don't know about the Ultralight here, this essentially is one of those, it's a car that was a low emissions vehicle, right? It was a low emissions vehicle that ended up, let me see if I could find it here, because I kind of lost my place. Let me hold on. I'm just going to click on that. Okay, so yeah, it's a 1992 low emission vehicle concept car intended to demonstrate the benefits of advanced materials and low fuel consumption. It was rated at 88 miles per gallon. Now, the thing with this is, while this isn't necessarily the most interesting factoid in regards to the movie, it does go to show you just another reason, kind of what Demolition Man did in regards to somewhat predicting the future. Because, we had the Arnold Schwarzenegger presidential library reference in the movie. Schwarzenegger, about a decade later, ran for governor of California and won. We had the Taco Bell franchise wars. Taco Bell was voted the most popular franchise in the United States. It has been for multiple years. I don't know why, but it was. That was a big thing. And then, we had the low emissions, high mile per gallon vehicle. That was a concept idea back in 93 before we got, Priuses and Tesla. This isn't an electric car, but it was a low emission concept car. So the idea of having better fuel economy and having that be a big part of what they were doing just seems, to kind of be on the horizon for how this film was handling a lot of this kind of stuff. And again, to me, that's just super interesting that they actually were able to kind of go that route and add to that conversation. Again, this is interesting too when we find out about the whole Taco Bell thing, right? Because even that was something that was only for the American release. One of the film's focal points is Taco Bell being the sole surviving restaurant chain after the franchise wars, because Taco Bell doesn't hold a wide presence outside of the US. The European film substitutes it with Pizza Hut, with lines redubbed and logos changed during post-production. I didn't know that until I was researching this movie, and I was actually able to go and find this website here called moviecensorship.com, which actually has the U.S. version on the left and the European version on the right, and you can see that they changed it from Taco Bell to Pizza Hut. And even here, no Taco Bell, but they just added the Pizza Hut logo in to make sure you knew. Here it is on the door. And this is 1993, so they were able to do it, in post, which goes to show you they had a lot of technology back then. And then even here, getting a better look at it. And then also we can see the Taco Bell food capsule that we had here in the movie. And then this is replaced with Pizza Hut. And but you can tell it's also a different insert, right? That's not Dennis Leary holding it. This isn't Dennis Leary holding it on the left side either, but we can see here that it's two different people. And I think that and they're kind of wearing different clothes too, which is kind of funny. But that was a big thing. That was a big controversy. That was something I didn't realize was happening in the European version. There was also the idea here of the plagiarism. Now, a Hungarian science fiction author named István Nemire says that most of the movie was based off of his book called Fight of the Dead, published in 86. In the novel, a terrorist and his enemy, a counter-terrorism soldier, are cryogenically frozen and awakened in the 22nd century to find violence has been purged from society. Now, the author claimed that a committee proved that 75% of the film is identical to the book, but he chose to not file a lawsuit, saying that it would be too expensive for him to hire a lawyer and fight against major Hollywood forces in the United States. He also claimed that Hollywood has plagiarized the works of many Eastern European writers after the fall of the Iron Curtain, and then he knows a person he claims to be responsible for illegally selling his idea to the filmmakers. And that is, again, one of those, it's one of those things where, when you start to look at like the concepts for these movies, right? And like, especially with Joel Silver films, this is not the first time this has happened. This one probably has more legitimacy to it than the other one, but Joel Silver produced The Matrix, and there was a woman who claims to have written the idea for The Matrix under an original title called The One back in the early 1980s, and she tried selling it to Warner, selling it to Joel Silver, and that they denied it. But then the Wachowskis came up with the idea, almost point for point, and they made The Matrix, but she didn't file a lawsuit against Joel Silver until The Matrix Reloaded came out in 2003. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you waited until the sequel came out and the money's being made. And she also was suing for partially parts of the film of the Terminator rights as well. And when I do one of these on The Matrix, we'll dive further into that. But I just found it to be really funny that story exists. And this woman actually still is out there claiming to be the mother of The Matrix. And I think she wrote like The Matrix 4 or something. She wrote one of those things. It's, again, the storylines about Joel Silver, you could find some stories about him. He's not as active as he once was, which is unfortunate, but I really do appreciate everything he tried to do. So what I wanted to do here is take a look over at the Box Office Mojo page to give us an idea of what the film pulled in. There we go. So it says here that the film pulled in a domestic gross of about $58 million back in the early part of 1990, or in the late part of 1993. It doesn't give us a budget or the international gross, but according to the Wikipedia page, it pulled in about 100 million more than the domestic gross. So about 100 million more than what it earned domestically. So I think it was around 159 million, and its budget was anywhere near 45 million to 77 million. So the movie, I don't know if I can say the movie actually made a profit if it only pulled in 159 million off of that particular budget. If it was 77 million, then it was clearly not much of a moneymaker. But then again, we don't know what it's done on home video or anything since then. It's been 27 years. I'm sure with licensing and syndication rights and everything else, it probably ended up doing okay. But even the Rotten Tomatoes page, you would figure a classic movie like this would do a little bit better. No, right now it's sitting at 62% from critics and 66% from the audience score based off of 270,000 reviews. I legitimately want to know who would vote this movie as 66%. This movie is easily a 90%. People are dumb. I'm just going to say it. People are dumb. If you don't give this movie at least a 9 out of 10, I don't think you know fun. I don't think you know fun at all. I think you just end up, you hate life. But looking through some of the reviews, we can actually get an idea here for what are the top reviews that are being posted on the page right now. David Anson here wrote back just a little over a year ago, saying here, Demolition Man is a movie that should have been fun and isn't. Well, David Anson sucks. I'm just going to say it. David Anson looks like the kind of guy who probably doesn't know fun. Right, on his wedding night, he probably thought a game of Scrabble was more beneficial than the copulation of the marriage. I'm just saying the guy probably doesn't smash. All right, if he doesn't think Demolition Man is fun, he doesn't smash. Owen Gleiberman here, quote not available from 2011. Richard Scheikel from Time from 2010 says, ultimately, the script's often sharp social satire is drowned out by the noise and confusion. It's also undercut by casting virtually all psychopathically murderous criminals as minority group members. Never mind the fact that Jesse Ventura was like the main dude that ended up getting brought out, right? He ended up getting brought out. Like Jesse Ventura, last I checked, is pretty crackerish. He's pretty white. He's pretty bleached skin, you know? So it sounds like this guy is trying to virtue signal a little bit there. Jonathan Rosenbaum here from the Chicago Reader. Rotten review. Nearly all of SF premises are according to the Statue of Andrew Dice Clay one-liners, which means that they, along with the characters, keep changing from one scene to the next. Again, it's a Joel Silver movie. If you don't know how Joel Silver makes his movies, which is basically action is paramount to story, that is how Joel Silver approaches everything. But with the right script and the right people working on it, we do get some pretty cool stuff. Like Lethal Weapon is a Joel Silver movie. That movie is excellently written by Shane Black. It's excellently directed by Richard Donner, excellently acted by Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, Gary Busey, and everybody else. So this dude can take it and shove it right up his pee hole. That's just, that's my take on that one. Emmanuel Levy from Variety says, a noisy, soulless, self-conscious pastiche that mixes elements of sci-fi, action, adventure, and romance, then pours on a layer of comedy replete with Hollywood in-jokes. I'm at this point, I'm legitimately just waiting here for the end, right? Like, I'm just waiting for, like, end? You know, like, do you have a point to make here, sir? I am waiting for the point. Is it hidden underneath that gigantic dustbuster of a mustache? Anyway, Sergio Benitez here, he likes it. It says, it's almost a rarity in the science fiction of the 90s to bring humor to its last consequences. True. Brian Costello from Common Sense Media. This is going to be a good one. It's from Common Sense Media. Violent, profanity-filled 90s sci-fi action movie. Again, at what point in time does anything he just said make it a rotten movie? Is it profanity laden? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. How does Stallone wipe his ass? Because of the profanity. We know this. This is the thing. This is a reality. This is what's going on. But obviously, these people, they have no love in their soul. That's all I'm saying. Let's see. Nick Rogers here, the Film Yap, gives it a positive, saying, not for nothing does the film open on a screen-filling image of Hollywood sign in flames, for it torches almost every supposition that the film made to showcase Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes whomping on each other can only be brain dead. And it is what it is. Look, the fact is that Hollywood was on fire. It's, again, very satirical, very tongue-in-cheek, and they actually shot that opening scene in Kentucky. It was a building that was going to be destroyed anyway. And they shot it out there so they could actually destroy a building. Because remember back in the 90s, when they did a bunch of this stuff, they actually went out and they actually destroyed buildings, right? They actually blew things up. They actually, it wasn't like Michael Bay on Transformers 4, where there were tons of explosions, but none of it was good, right? None of it was great. It was all just like fake, very like, it's just fireworks. There's no actual meat or oomph behind the explosion. Joel Silver don't F around, man. He don't F around at all. He definitely made sure that stuff was doing what it needed to be done. And so, yeah, I find those reviews to be pretty funny, at least, because, everyone has their opinion. Obviously, they have their opinion. I get that entirely. But at the same time, I really don't. I don't care. I did find this one to be funny. This is actually one of the opinions I found coming in from NeoGaf, which is a forum mostly for gaming. But I came across this while I was looking things up today. And it asks the question, is Demolition Man one of the most insulting and shameless movies ever made? And this, look, this person here named is Scapegoat. These are like your general, like really whiny leftist types. And this guy says, it's almost as if the director set out to insult everyone's intelligence with this streaming pile. The whole premise is ridiculous. Police have forgotten how to deal with unruly citizens. They have to consult their handheld computer when Wesley is cursing at the ATM. Everyone has become simpering children in the future. But does he not understand the satire? And actually, to be fair, for talking about the idea of Demolition Man and kind of predicting the future, think about it for a second, right? How many cops now like have to almost like call it in order to get instructions for how to enforce the law, right? How many people now want to be protected from insults? How many people out there want to be protected from profanity? How many people out there want there to be deplatforming for different opinions? I mean, if anything, Demolition Man, while making fun of that type of overprotective, everyone gets a gold star future, we almost fell into that. Like, right, society kind of went that way in some aspects. So I love that they're trying to do this. And it says here, this is even true. They even named it Rambo the Destroyer in some countries so people would go see it. And that is actually really, really, really true. Over in Kuwait, they actually released the movie under the name Rambo the Destroyer. I was able to find this image coming in from the El Rey network, saying that despite being a highly inaccurate title, Demolition Man was marketed as Rambo the Destroyer in Kuwait. It was thought that associating the movie with Stallone's popular Rambo character would help sell more tickets. That's awesome. That's awesome. It's stupid, it's dumb, but it's hysterical at the same damn time. I mean, who doesn't love that kind of stuff, right? So we've got that. That's great. But what I love here is this guy talks all this crap, and then the only response back to this is from a person, and he just says, "No, it's awesome." Because it's true. That's what it is. That's all it is. It's awesome. And everyone who talks shit is just stupid. And that is my professional objective opinion. That's my professional objective opinion. But I did want to, this is, when it comes to interesting stuff here, this is actually what the movie was up against, right? Because it's always interesting to talk about how much a movie made, but when we talk about what it was up against in the theater, like, did you guys know that it came out, again, I've talked about this, October 1993, but look at this here. It was up against Return of the Living Dead Part 3, which is not a movie necessarily to write home about. It's not terrible, but it's still pretty grand. We've got Gettysburg, which is a fantastic film. The Nightmare Before Christmas opened the next day, according to this particular website, and that's a classic movie. You've got Ticks, which no one ever saw. Fearless, I think, was a Danny Aiello film. Judgment Night, another Dennis Leary movie. If you haven't seen Judgment Night, you're missing out. I'll definitely have to do a video about that. I love that movie. The Beverly Hillbillies came out as well. And then you had this one here, The House of the Spirits and Kika. But I mean, this is still a decent lineup for October 1993. And the movie still did pretty goddamn well. I mean, you at least have seen a couple of these movies, I would assume, at this point. But it's always interesting to look to see exactly how the movie does and how it all plays out and everything else. So that's one of the things I wanted to share with you guys. Additionally, I also, talking about the three seashells, because that was something somebody had talked to me about. They wanted to know more about the three seashells. They're like, oh, how do we... what goes on with, like, how do those work, right? Because that's always been one of the ongoing jokes of the film has always been those three seashells. So according to this one website that I found, if I can get it to load here on StreamYard, there we go. It basically shows us three theories on how the seashells work, because people have been debating this now for almost 3 decades. They've been debating everything about this particular thing. So what we have is, we go down here. It's a prank they play on people. That's what this one theory is. I don't believe it. You wouldn't have it there if it was no reason. It goes on to say it's some sort of bidet effect, which to me feels like it could be probably the most accurate, that it could be some kind of bidet, right? Like it's like you scrape your butt with the seashells, and then a bidet, squirts your butt, and then you put the seashells back, and then some kind of sanitary device happens and ends up doing that. That's kind of one of the things I thought. And then also, people don't poop in the future is another theory, which I disagree with. If you live in Southern California, the likelihood of you eating Mexican food is very high. It's delicious. It's amazing, but you're going to poop. It's just the way that the cookie crumbles. And that was, again, never been a definitive answer on how this whole thing plays out. There's never been a definitive answer on the three seashells. What we know about the three seashells, how they came to be, was when the screenwriter was working on the movie, he wanted to think of like a funny way to talk about the bathroom as the future. How does the bathroom work? So he called another screenwriter friend of his, and that other screenwriter friend was actually on the toilet. Like the screenwriter for the movie and the other screenwriter were both on the toilet at the same time, having a conversation about how to make futuristic toilets more interesting or crazy. And the other screenwriter was like, well, I've got these seashells in a bag as a decoration on my toilet. And the guy who wrote Demolition Man said, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to try to make that work, right? I'll find a way to make it work. And he added it in. So really the three seashells just came from a conversation about bathroom decor. And yeah, how many times have you gone to someone's house and seen seashells on the back of their toilet or somewhere in their bathroom and wondered, why are seashells here? Well, now you're never going to see them the same way ever again. You're going to go, oh, three seashells. And does somebody scrape their ass with those three seashells? That's the question that I have for you guys. I mean, this movie is fantastic. It's again, 27 years. It's held up. It's done very well. I mean, let me bring up here I have a trivia page that I've got as well that I wanted to talk about. So the last thing we'll look at here is the trivia from IMDb, which gives us a bit of insight into the movie itself, which is pretty cool. So Fred Dekker did uncredited rewrites on the script. When he was brought on, the script was began in the future, and Spartan was introduced as he was brought out of cryofreezing. Dekker suggested that the movie open with a prologue set in 1996 to showcase Spartan and Phoenix in their natural environment, saying, if you don't show Kansas, Oz isn't all that special. And that's amazing. It really is amazing. And what you need to know about Fred Dekker is, and this is one I'll definitely be diving into, he is the director of Monster Squad, which is one of the best movies out of the 1980s. So, he worked on that with Shane Black. It's basically Goonies meets Universal Monsters. It's on Hulu right now. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. So the fact that he was brought on as an uncredited writer on the script, and he gave us that excellent intro, because that intro was great. It really did give us a solid look into just who Spartan was and just who Phoenix was. It was great. Now, apparently, Wesley Snipes' kicks and punches looked lurchy or awkward. This is because he's an accomplished black belt, and his kicks and punches were so fast that the camera blurted out on camera. So the producers had to ask him to slow it down. Imagine that one. You're trying to you are fast, but the 24 frames a second that you film in can't capture it, right? They need to shoot this movie in 48 or 60 frames a second to really get the full look and then find a way, I guess, to maybe slow it down in post. Stallone described the cryogenic freezing scene as possibly the worst 5 hours he's ever had on movie sets. He was terrified. Well, yeah, he's sitting there and he's naked in a vat of water as it's getting ready to enclose him in. It would scare anybody. Sandra Bullock's costume during the Taco Bell sequence was made out of stones and gems weighing approximately 40 pounds. Her dress actually tore, and that's why she's holding her arms at her sides after Stallone walks away. We already talked about Stallone wanting Jackie Chan to play Phoenix. Now it says here, okay, here we go. Stallone has said in interviews that the idea behind the three seashells was that two were used like chopsticks to clamp or pull the waste out of the body, and the third was used to scrape what was left over. No explanation was made about how they were cleaned or sanitized between uses. And that, of course, is the question of the hour, isn't it? I mean, you can sit there and talk about the Taco Bell franchise war. You can talk about President Arnold Schwarzenegger. You can ask all these questions, even about the morality code, right? Getting fined 1,000 credits for breaking the verbal morality code. But still, the three seashells is one of the main things that has just confused audiences and kept them talking and debating for nearly 30 years. All right. So at around 125 minutes, an hour, 25 minutes into the movie, when they're in the underground garage, the word I can't even pronounce it, is scrawled on the overhead air duct. This is a Hungarian swear word meaning horse penis, but with the T at the end of the word, it actually means fuck no, which is what Edward James Olmos said to Harrison Ford in Blade Runner back in 1982. Apparently, Dennis Rodman here was so impressed with Wesley Snipes' dye job, even though Wesley Snipes hated the dye job that he had in the movie, that he began dyeing his hair different colors because he was impressed by or inspired by Simon Phoenix. And it's kind of funny you say that, because Simon Phoenix was a psychotic, sadistic, masochistic, narcissistic sociopath who wanted to control the world through violence and terror. And Dennis Rodman has hung out in North Korea a lot with Kim Jong-un. So, just saying, what exactly is Dennis Rodman done over in North Korea that we don't know about? It's a question. So yeah, according to, okay, we talked about that already. Here we go. This is interesting here. So this is the last thing I'll read because we've been going on for a while. It says here, due to Warner Brothers' dislike of the first 2-hour plus long cut of the movie, as well as various behind the scene problems, they hired editor Stuart Baird to come in and do re-editing. The same thing happened on Tango and Cash, which was also heavily re-edited by Baird and others. Originally in the movie, there were additional scenes, including Spartan meeting his own grown-up daughter in the sewers, amongst Edgar Friendly's people. While cut, we do see Spartan protecting a random girl during a shootout in the sewers. That is his daughter. She's also seen again in the ending scene, standing next to Friendly while he's talking with Spartan. And I'm actually really glad they cut that part out. And I say that because I liked that, like, he didn't immediately go to find his kid. That wasn't a key focus in the movie. And when asked about, do you want to go find your daughter? He said, like, no, she's like moved on. And I think it was a very interesting thing. I don't know if I would be able to do that to my kids, but back when I first saw this movie, I just thought it was a very interesting and bold choice because it felt like it was kind of antithetical to what we would see in movies, what the hero would do. Now it says here, some violent scenes with Phoenix were also cut down or completely removed. For example, the scene where he rips out the warden's eye, a scene near the end where he kills several people inside the cryo prison with a machine gun, and a scene where he kills a guy from where he took the car after escaping from the cryo prison. Also, during the final fight between him and Spartan, Spartan was shown taking some loose wire and shocking him. So these are all cut down or removed. We need to see the unrated cut of this movie. We need to get that RoboCop X-rated version of this film. One other deleted scene included Phoenix killing Zachary Lamb after he escapes from the sewers, and Spartan and Huxley find Lamb and talk to him before he dies. And many extra lines of dialogue were cut out, but some can be heard in various trailers for the movie. Longer and additional scenes were also deleted. And that's always a problem. Like, I just think they should put all this on DVD. Both the sewer battle sequence and the final showdown in the cryo prison were heavily cut down, which caused some continuity mistakes in the final movie because there are 6 different cryocons working with Simon, but only 2 are shown being killed in the movie when Spartan and Huxley arrive at Cocteau's building and fight with them. Due to massive cuts made to the sequences, the death scenes were also of who got killed by Spartan and others in sewers, and ones killed by him in the cryo prison were also cut out. The original cryo prison action finale included the scene where Spartan fights and kills with 7 more prisoners that were thought out by Simon, who also injected them with the mega adrenaline to wake them up faster and tougher to defeat. This was also where the infamous deleted fight scene between Stallone and Jesse Ventura took place. See that? Oh man, yeah. Like I know that Ventura was definitely in the movie. You know, there was a bit with Ventura because we see him a couple times. He's in the opening credits. He's even even in the end credit here down at the bottom. There he is right there. But we never got to see much with him in the movie, and that was unfortunate because it's Jesse the Body Ventura, man. That's freaking cool. But at the end of the day, Demolition Man is an absolute classic in my opinion. It's an absolute awesome movie. I love it to death. I watch it anytime I just want to go back to 1993 and laugh at how they depict 1997 and 2032, of which we're now only 12 years away from. So it's definitely weird to think about what we saw for the future and where things really are. But it just, again, this is Stallone, I believe, at his absolute best, as far as just kind of finishing out the 80s style action film, giving us something that's purely iconic and something that at the end of the day would never be made by anyone else. And I think even today. So now I leave it to you. I want to hear what you guys think about Demolition Man, good, bad, or the other. Definitely let me know. And let's take a look here at the comment section. Let's see here. Let me just kind of run through some of these. All right. Let's see. Okay. Oh, we have a super chat here from Video Game NPC, Australian $3. Thank you very much. Saying Stallone clearly wins the Phoenix penis game. Very true. Let's see here. Okay. So, oh, you're talking about Brandon. We're not talking about Onward. So I haven't seen Onward yet. Okay, I'm just looking through. Okay, do I think Hollywood would make or reboot the Demolition Man? No, I don't think they would remake or reboot it. I mean, look, Stallone is in his 70s now. He's definitely older. He's definitely up there in age, and he wants to do, I think, more Expendables and maybe another Escape Plan movie. I would much rather see another Demolition Man than anything else. But unfortunately, it's probably not going to happen. I don't want them. They're not going to be able to capture the same charm, I don't think. So I'd be okay with it. Yeah, there was Snipes finding Jeffrey Dahmer's name. That was pretty funny. Jeffrey Dahmer, I love that guy. That was pretty cute. So that was pretty good one too. Oh yeah, the Oscar Mayer Wiener song was pretty great. That was a lot of fun. Snipes repeating what the warden said in Spanish is pretty funny. Yeah, I was watching that scene earlier today while I was trying to get some screenshots and whatnot. Let's go through here. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, yeah, we've been on about 43 minutes here. So, I think I'm probably going to wrap it up because I actually have to, head out. But I do appreciate everyone tuning in. If you enjoyed this particular thing, again, this is just the tester episode. We'll be making adjustments and changes and everything else. And we'll definitely talk again soon. Thank you guys very much. If you want to suggest something, be sure to head on over to facebook.com/groups /3 Buck Theater. And I will talk to everyone later. Have yourself a fantastic one and peace out.